Have you ever looked at your hands and wondered where the time went? You are not alone. And tonight, I want to tell you a story. It's a story about a man named David. But really, it's a story about you. It's a story about all of us who are trying to find our way back home to ourselves. David was 32 years old. He lived in a small, cramped apartment on the outskirts of the city. By day, he worked as a draftsman for a massive construction corporation. His job was to take the beautiful, creative sketches of senior architects and turn them into precise, mathematical blueprints on a computer screen. It was tedious work. It was soul-crushing work. For 8 hours a day, David sat in a grey cubicle, staring at grey lines, under grey fluorescent lights. But David wasn't a grey person. Inside his heart, he carried a vibrant, beautiful dream. David wanted to be an independent landscape architect. Ever since he was a little boy, David believed that spaces could heal people. He remembered how, after his mother passed away when he was 12, his father would take him to a small, hidden botanical garden in the center of the city. Under the canopy of the green trees, smelling the damp earth and the blooming jasmine, David's chest would loosen. The grief didn't disappear, but it became gentle. It became something he could carry. From that moment on, David knew his purpose. He didn't want to build towering glass monuments for billionaires. He wanted to design spaces that gave people a place to breathe. He wanted to build sanctuaries for the brokenhearted. For 5 years, David tried to launch his own independent studio. Every weekend, every evening, after his exhausting day job, he sent out proposals to local councils. He entered design competitions. He reached out to small business owners, offering to design their storefront green spaces for next to nothing. But 5 years is a long time to knock on doors that refuse to open. Every single competition entry came back with a polite, automated rejection email. Every council proposal was buried under bureaucracy. His friends, who had once encouraged him, started telling him to be realistic. "You have a stable job, David," they would say over drinks. "The economy is tough. Just climb the corporate ladder. Leave the gardens for your retirement." But how do you ignore a fire that burns inside your bones? How do you tell your soul to stop wanting what it was born to create? David couldn't, so he kept pushing. He pushed until his body was empty and his mind was numb. Then came the autumn of his 32nd year. It was the year the city announced a major project, the revitalization of the old industrial waterfront. This was it. This was the project David had been preparing for his entire life. It was a space meant for the community. For 3 months, David didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. He poured every ounce of his remaining soul into this design. He called it the Living Shore. It featured community gardens, water filtration pathways made of natural rocks, and places for families to gather. It was his masterpiece. He submitted it, knowing he had left everything on the paper. 2 weeks later, he received the notification. He wasn't even shortlisted. The project was awarded to a massive commercial firm, the very firm he worked for. They planned to tear down the old trees and build a concrete plaza with luxury retail shops. That night, something broke inside David. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was a quiet, devastating collapse. Have you ever been there? That moment where you finally give up, where you look at the sky and say, "I'm done. You win. I won't try anymore." David didn't go to work the next day. He called in sick. He didn't get out of bed. For 3 days, he stayed under the covers, watching the shadows of the window frame move across the ceiling as the sun rose and set. He felt like a ghost visiting his own life. On the 4th day, the silence of his apartment became too loud. David put on his coat and walked. He didn't know where he was going until he found himself at the gates of the old botanical garden. As he sat there, an old woman approached. It was Clara. Clara was 74 years old, and she had been the head volunteer gardener at this park for nearly 30 years. David knew her face. He had seen her tending to the roses since he was a child. Clara didn't say anything at first. She just sat down on the other end of the bench. She held a small wooden box filled with flower bulbs that looked like dry, dead onions. Clara, they don't look like much, do they? David looked over. He didn't want to talk to anyone, but there was a kindness in Clara's voice that felt like a warm blanket. David, no. They look dead. They aren't dead. They are just waiting. This is a tulip bulb. To anyone who doesn't know, it looks like trash. It's ugly, dry, and cold. But do you know what it needs to become a flower? David shook his head. Clara, it needs the winter. It needs to be buried in the dark, freezing dirt. If you keep this bulb in a warm, comfortable room, it will never bloom. It needs the cold darkness to trigger something inside of it. The darkness isn't its grave, son. It's its womb. Clara reached out and placed the dry, ugly bulb into David's open hand. Her hand was warm. You've been in the dark for a while, haven't you? I've watched you come here since you were a little boy. I saw you when you lost your mother, and I see you now. Stop fighting the darkness. Use it. Grow your roots deep while no one is watching. David didn't quit his day job the next morning. He didn't suddenly become a millionaire. His life looked exactly the same from the outside, but on the inside, everything had shifted. He stopped running. He began to walk. For the next 4 months, through the bitter cold of January and February, David focused entirely on his soil. Every Saturday morning, he went to the botanical garden. He helped Clara prune the dead branches. He learned how to care for the earth during the frost. His hands became rougher, calloused from the cold tools, but his heart became softer. He also started a small project. He didn't ask for permission, and he didn't ask for money. Right behind his apartment building, there was a small, neglected strip of dirt. It was used as a dumping ground for trash and old furniture. It was ugly, grey, and dead. Every evening after work, David spent 1 hour cleaning that alleyway. He picked up the plastic bottles. He swept away the broken glass. He used his own small savings to buy bags of organic compost. He broke up the hard, compacted dirt with a shovel until it was loose and breathing again. His neighbors watched him from their windows. Some smiled, others shook their heads, thinking he was losing his mind. But David didn't care about their opinions. He was doing this because his soul needed to see something grow. And then March arrived. One day, his neighbor, the elderly woman who sat on his bench, brought her grandson to the alleyway garden. Her grandson happened to be a teacher at a local public elementary school. He looked at what David had done with a trash heap, using almost no budget. Our school has an old concrete courtyard, the teacher said to David. The kids have nowhere green to play. We don't have corporate money, but we have a small community fund. Would you help us turn it into a garden? It wasn't a multi-million-dollar waterfront project. It didn't make David famous. But as he stood in that school courtyard, watching a young girl smell a leaf of mint for the first time, her face lighting up with wonder, David knew he had made it. He was doing exactly what he was born to do. He had become an independent architect of healing spaces. He didn't leave his day job, immediately worked part-time for another year, but the day job no longer defined him. It was just a tool that funded his purpose. Life is not a race to be won. It is a garden to be tended. Your value does not come from your achievements, your wealth, or the validation of people who do not know your heart. Your value comes from your capacity to love, to endure, and to rise up after the frost. Time and time again, the winter can be long, my friend. It can be so very cold. But remember the promise of the earth. Spring always comes. It always comes. Thank you for sitting with me tonight and listening to this story. Before you close this video and go back to your day or close your eyes to sleep, I want to ask you a question. What is the winter you are walking through right now? And what is one small root you can grow today? Let me know in the comments below. Read each other's stories. Be kind to one another in the comments. We are all just walking each other home through the dark. If this story brought a little bit of warmth to your heart, consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might be sitting in the dark tonight. Take care of yourself, and remember, you are exactly where you need to be.